Hey folks, Mark Levin here. Now, before we dive in today's episode, I want to talk about something truly valuable, protecting your financial future with gold. It's called diversification. Now, for that, I only trust Advantage Gold. They're the real deal with 5-star service and a sterling reputation. So give them a call today. Call Advantage Gold at 800-900-8000. Tell them Mark Levin sent you. Trust me, you'll thank yourself in the future. Now let's get to the show. Results may vary. Consult with your financial professional.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. Well, this is how the Democrats work. Donald Trump, in a Stalinist-like so-called trial, and Sam Alito, because his wife flew 2 flags, or maybe she flew one and he flew one, they're demanding that he recuse himself as they character assassinate him, as they have character assassinated Clarence Thomas, as they've character assassinated Neil Gorsuch. And the list goes on and on and on, because we're not dealing with a normal American political party. The Democrat Party hates America, and it will do whatever it has to do, including destroy our institutions, our traditions, our comity, C-O-M-I-T-Y, and, of course, the Constitution to get what it wants. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know how to put this without sounding the wrong way. First of all, I want you to know President Trump will be on the program at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. He was supposed to be on the program last evening, but obviously the bloviating Stalinist prosecutor couldn't shut the hell up in front of the jury, so we moved it to today, which was always one of the options. So President Trump will be on the program at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Come hell or high water, he'll be here. You know, I've spent, how old am I? Well, I've spent a long time, let me put it that way, 40 years, give or take, on constitutional issues, on constitutional litigation, debating it, studying it, analyzing it, diving as deep as the water allows me to go. And it is, in fact, very interesting, very informative to listen to the lawyers on TV. The defense lawyers, the former federal prosecutors, even some professors. But there's something missing. I watch, I say, there's something missing. And what's missing is the lack of the same kind of tenacity the same kind of motivation to win these battles. I don't mean just to analyze them at a relatively surface level or to, what's the jury say? Well, I used to watch their eyes and their mouth and whether they got up and had to go to the restroom or... Got it. It's all very interesting to me. Very. But what do we do about all this? And they'll tell you they don't know. There'll be an appeal, they'll tell you. But it'll take time. And in the meantime, Donald Trump will be wearing a scarlet letter on his forehead. Exactly what the Democrats want, to take 2, 3, 4, 5% of the vote. A convicted felon, that's Biden. That's what his campaign says they're going to call Trump if this jury convicts him on one of 34 preposterous counts. The whole thing's a setup. The fix is in. And so you'll hear the lawyers go on about this, and they'll say the instructions are horrendous for a variety of reasons, and they're correct. They'll say that this is the greatest judge for the prosecution, even though I was a former prosecutor, I've ever seen, and they're correct. And they will say the judge's instructions to the jury not to infer Trump's guilt from Michael Cohen's pleas is correct, even though the judge throughout kept connecting the two. Great point. I agree 100%. And for 1,000 other reasons. This case has been one manipulation after another. To what end? To interfere with this election. To get a conviction on anything. Anything. Maybe it's a tax issue. Maybe it's an invoice. Anything. Just one. Just one. Because by the time the appellate process in New York, Democrat judges and so forth and so on hear the case, maybe they'll even rule for Trump, it's too late. And they now have no answer to this. What do we do? What do we do? I posted something that my friend Arthur Ferguson, fantastic lawyer, had said not that long ago. And I posted it, and then I've added to it effectively. And I see our friend Brett Baer is using it on TV. Good for him. Somebody, finally. The Bush versus Gore, in Bush versus Gore, the United States Supreme Court interceded in the Florida Supreme Court's deliberations because that court was changing the Florida voting system on the fly, thereby violating the equal protection rights of Florida voters. The state court was establishing new standards for resolving a presidential election. The Manhattan trial court has done worse. In the farcical hush money case, it has taken up a case in which there is exclusive federal jurisdiction involving the federal election campaign, despite the fact that the federal agencies with authority over enforcing federal campaign laws, that is the Federal Election Commission and the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Southern District of New York, declined to bring charges. Judge Juan Merchan is conflicted. His daughter, Lauren, is raising tens of millions of dollars on behalf of her Democratic Party clients. Collateral evidence has been abundant and has no probative value. The opposite. The elements of the supposed federal offense were never articulated by the state or the court. The imposition of a gag order on the defendant, who's the future Republican nominee for president during a national campaign, raises all manner of First Amendment questions, problems, and concerns. Moreover, this state court could easily have avoided influencing and interfering with the federal presidential election. This is from the Blaze that published it. Merely by setting a later time for the case if the court actually believed it somehow had merit. After all, the state waited years to bring it. Therefore, there's not only a federal constitutional equal protection violation in that this state trial court has purposefully interposed itself into the federal presidential election without authority or jurisdiction, but the court has also violated the federal constitutionally protected due process rights of the future Republican nominee for president. And the voters are to determine the federal election outcome without the interference of a state court attempting to influence the result. If President Trump is found guilty of any of the 34 charges, I would strongly encourage his attorneys to seek an emergency appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court based, at least in significant part, on Bush versus Gore. Now, I've added online the following. In Bush versus Gore, 5 justices agree that there was an Equal Protection Clause violation in using differing standards of determining a valid vote in different counties, causing an, quote, unequal evaluation of ballots in various respects. As I said earlier, here it is actually worse. To crystallize even further, here we have a state court acting without jurisdiction, influencing a federal presidential election by, among other things, preventing the putative GOP nominee from campaigning, meaning hundreds of thousands of voters at rallies, draining resources from the campaign to legal expenses, etc. That is, handicapping Trump and the GOP, thereby causing, quote, an unequal, unquote, federal election playing field. And in doing so, the state court has eviscerated the candidates' due process rights in a host of ways. No need to list them here. There's a very famous attorney who doesn't accept this. And I posted this. An attorney who argues against my prior post regarding Bush versus Gore essentially asserts that the jury might convict based on tax law or false invoices, but not a constitutional issue. Further, he argues that if the judge stays sentencing during appeal, there would be no reason for the court to take up the case. I find this all the time, that these guys totally miss the point. And I write, unfortunately, this misses the point entirely. This would not be an appeal based on the jury's choice for conviction. It would be based on the actions and process used by the state court and the prosecutor, that is the state of New York, to get a conviction. That is, to interfere with a free and fair election. That is the purpose of all the manipulation and absurd rulings from the state court on behalf of the prosecution. Now, you've heard them say this for weeks, but they don't put 2 and 2 together. The state appellate process has nothing to do with this as a federal constitutional matter. In fact, it would just further delay an ultimate resolution up the state chain. And I'm saying that process is the problem. And, of course, the urgency of the High Court, the Supreme Court of the United States, taking up the case quickly seems obvious. That is, every day that passes, this unconstitutional state interference has an impact on the federal election. Now, it is impossible to predict what the High Court would do, including whether it would take on this case. But that's always the situation. I'm simply paving a possible road to the Supreme Court if that is a preferred route, and I think it is. So to put even a finer point on it, the rebuttal is, well, what if they convict on a state tax issue? Or what if they convict on the state financial issue, reporting issue? Well, first of all, that reporting issue would be dead altogether, as they keep saying on TV correctly. It had a 2-year statute of limitations, so you needed at least an inference of some kind of federal law, federal election law in this case, they argue, with great ambiguity. But that misses the point, too. I said Bush versus Gore, where they changed the voting system in county after county after county, and the Supreme Court of the state kept changing the voting system for the state over and over and over again. And finally, the United States Supreme Court steps in, stops the Florida Supreme Court, and says what? It doesn't say what I argued, even though Scalia and Thomas and I agreed which was this is a violation of the election process where the state legislature has authority and the state Supreme Court is rewriting the law. As the Chief Justice, then, of the Florida State Supreme Court indicated, in order to get a majority, they wound up with a 7-2 vote. The majority, the other 5, joined by Scalia and Thomas, they said, no, what we have here is an equal protection problem. I said, not really. Oh, yes, we do. Voters don't know in which district. They have different standards for allowing their votes to count. Therefore, it violates the Equal Protection Clause. Well, ladies and gentlemen, obviously the facts are different in the Trump case, but it does involve the Equal Protection Clause for the reasons I said. The putative Republican nominee, that is, the man who will be the Republican nominee for president, the Republican Party, Republican donors, Republican members of the Republican Party, and Republican voters are being handicapped. It's not a level playing field. The playing field is unequal, quote unquote. Because a state court and a state prosecutor are interfering with the election process. It has nothing to do with the specifics of the conviction. It has everything to do with the fact of a conviction based on the manipulation by the state. Now, does the guy understand what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying, right, Mr. Badus here? I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
You know, folks, China, Russia, Iran, they're all on the move. Right here in the U.S., you've got inflation, you have open borders, and, of course, an election year. Oh, and we just crossed over $34 trillion in debt with no signs of slowing down. It's time to wake up, folks. There's a lot at risk, possibly even your retirement account. The time to protect yourself is before a crisis, not after. Advantage Gold, the gold and silver company I recommend to help Americans. Well, they'll help you prepare now for times just like these. Call them at 800-900-8000 today. Get their free 2024 gold and silver kit. Plus, tell them I sent you, and they'll give you a special Mark Levin discount worth up to $1,300 if you qualify. Call Advantage Gold today. Here's the number, 800-900-8000. Plus, see if you qualify to get your special discount worth up to $1,300 today, 800-900-8000. Performance may vary. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. You should always consult your financial and tax professional. I just find it interesting. Remember, Mr. Producer, the 14th Amendment. Remember America. When I was getting wind through this group or that group on the radical left that they were looking at the 14th Amendment, the so-called insurrection clause that applied to the Confederacy, to block Donald Trump from certain state ballots. Remember how much time we spent on that, Mr. Producer? I actually wrote about it. The same lawyers said, oh, that's an extremist position. They're not going to do that. It doesn't have a chance. And I said, oh, no. It may not have a chance, but we're going to have to, gear up for this battle and beat it back. I remember this. And I'll be right back. You know, folks, we've got an awful lot swirling around this country, both internally and externally. We've got wars going on in all parts of the world. We've got riots effectively going on in our colleges and universities. We have inflation through the roof. It's an election year to boot. All these problems are often huge tailwinds for gold, which is why gold is at all-time highs, looking like it's going to go higher. And when it comes to gold, I only trust my friends at Advantage Gold. They help Americans just like you protect your retirement accounts and help safeguard safeguard your wealth through diversification. So call them right now. 800-900-8000. Get their free 2024 gold and silver kit plus a special Mark Levin discount worth up to $1,300 if you qualify. Call Advantage Gold right now. 800-900-8000. See if you qualify to get your special Mark Levin discount worth up to $1,300 today. Performance may vary. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. You should always consult your financial and tax professional.
Nobody says it better than Mark Levin.
I'll go with what Mark Levin said, because nobody could say it better.
Call in now at 877-381-3811.
President Trump was supposed to be on last evening. I didn't announce in advance because we didn't know how long the prosecutor would go. Well, he went on and on and on, as we pointed out then, to try and confuse the jury, throw everything against the wall, and create distance between the defense closing argument and what they were saying. It's all strategy. And so we had a backup time, which was this evening at 7 p.m., and so President Trump will be here in about 30 minutes, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, on the program outside the courthouse this afternoon. The president said this, cut one, go.
I would say, in listening to the charges from the judge, who's, as you know, very conflicted and corrupt, because of the confliction, very, very corrupt. Mother Teresa could not beat these charges. These charges are rigged. The whole thing is rigged. The whole country's a mess between the borders and fake elections, and you have a trial like this where the judge is so conflicted he can't breathe. He's got to do his job. And it's not for me, that I can tell you. It's a disgrace. And I mean that. Mother Teresa could not beat those charges, but we'll see. We'll see how we do. It's a very disgraceful situation. Every single legal scholar and expert said this is no case. It shouldn't be brought. And it certainly could have been brought 7 years ago, not in the middle of a presidential election. It was all done by Joe Biden. This judge contributed to Joe Biden, and far worse than that, but I'm not allowed to talk about it because I have a gag order. Far worse than that, by 1,000 times worse than that. The worst I've ever heard, but I can't talk about it. It'll be talked about, but I'm not allowed to talk about it. But it'll be talked about in the history books. What's happening here is weaponization at a level that nobody's seen before, ever.
And that's the point, is it not, America? We hear the legal beagles, and they make the point, too. And they go into the weeds, and they make the point. Defense counsel, former federal prosecutors, professor of this, professor of that. And there are good points. And let us hope there's at least one great patriot who can cut through this, including what the judge did today with these, or the other day, with these contemptible instructions. But what if there's not? They don't have an answer. Just go up the appellate line in the blue state of New York and hope for the best. And yet they will tell you. They will all tell you. You won't have an answer until after the election. In other words, you won't have an answer until Joe Biden's elected president. What good does that do anybody? You've got to be an advocate. And I don't mean a lunatic. I don't mean a crazy. You've got to be an advocate. Not just accept as a lawyer what you're watching, but the gears in the brain have to keep moving. Not just talk about your own experiences, but the gears in the brain have to keep moving. This is what I've done for 40 years. Give you some examples. We were told we could never win the school choice cases. We and certain other conservative legal groups. We couldn't win the cases. There'd be equal protection issues. There'd be all kinds of issues related to the federal funds. And what about religious institutions? What about this? What about that? We fought for 20 damn years. We went to the Wisconsin Supreme Court. Wisconsin was battleground, ground zero, twice. And to the U.S. Supreme Court, we and others, twice. And we won. Finally, won. They said it couldn't be done. Now school choice is a crucially important issue. Landmark Legal Foundation, the Institute for Justice, and a handful of others. We won. I'm watching as Bill Clinton lies in front of a grand jury. And I'm watching even more as Bill Clinton lies during a deposition in which Judge Susan Wright, federal district judge out of Arkansas, Little Rock, Arkansas, comes to Washington to oversee, to ensure that President Clinton is treated with respect. But he lied. So we put our heads together at Landmark Legal Foundation with our friend Arthur Ferguson, who was a clerk many years ago for Chief Justice Warren Burger, and who was also assistant counsel on the 1976 free speech case, Buckley versus Vallejo, which they say they couldn't win, and they won. Nonetheless, we came up with an idea. We did not have standing in that case. We're a third party to file a motion to hold Bill Clinton in contempt. But we found an arcane procedure. A letter of notice, a notice to the court that informs the court of the commission of an offense against the court. We'd never seen it used, but there it is in the federal rules. And so we wrote a detailed letter of notice to the federal judge on how Bill Clinton committed criminal contempt against the judiciary, the judge, that is, the court itself. We laid out the case. Robert Bennett at the time, Bill Bennett's brother, well-known attorney, actually a very good attorney, was representing Bill Clinton. He immediately filed to have our letter of notice rejected. He said, they don't have any standing. And I replied, we never said we did. This is a letter of notice to the court. You don't need standing. To which he replied, Mr. Producer, nothing. He embarrassed himself. After the impeachment trial of Bill Clinton, I think it was a couple weeks later, Judge Wright, again, who we hadn't heard from, held Bill Clinton in civil contempt. And the vast majority of the legal points she raised had been raised in our letter of notice. And Bill Clinton, she said, had the opportunity to defend himself in front of the court with a full trial in which he could present evidence to defend himself. But, of course, he didn't want to do that, given what he had done. And so he reached an accord, a negotiated accord, with Robert Ray, who'd taken over the case after Ken Starr was appointed to an academic position. As a result, Bill Clinton had his law license suspended for 8 years by the Arkansas Supreme Court. Before the U.S. Supreme Court could pull his Supreme Court license, he resigned from the Supreme Court bar And he had to pay Paula Jones, I think it was $80,000 or $180,000, whatever it was. And it was all triggered by the letter of notice. I told you folks about the 14th Amendment. What was percolating? I know the enemy. I do not have blinders on. I don't need to go into exquisite detail about who I am. I'm telling you the difference between those who have the gears moving in their brains as advocates trying to figure out a legitimate legal way to confront the enemy, pushing the edge of the envelope without stepping over it. And I explained that the 14th Amendment was going to be used by these kooks to try and deny President Trump a ballot position in some of these states. It was dismissed by some of the great legal analysts out there. That's a kook idea. It'll never happen. No, it's not a kook idea. They're going to use it. We have to be prepared for it. It's an outrageous idea. And then it happened. And then I see these guys commenting on it, Mr. Producer, the same people who dismissed it. And you know, folks, I've been talking about it and I wrote about it. So here again, we're back. With the snark and the smirks. We have no way of knowing what a judge is going to do. We have no way of knowing what the Supreme Court is going to do any more than we know what a jury is going to do, and so forth and so on. But if you don't try and make an effective, reasonable, substantive case against tyranny and the tyrants, then you've surrendered. Then you lose. Then you surrender and you lose. They win. You shouldn't make, and we've had callers who make, pretty, sometimes out of left field, a very strange argument. We ought to do this one. And I say, no, that doesn't work. That doesn't work. But if your thought process is based on the Constitution, on Supreme Court precedent, and if that precedent has a potential for serving our mission, which is liberty, which is republicanism with a small r, which is constitutionalism, freedom, then you use it. Hard cases require smart thinking. Easy cases don't require legal analysis. They're routine. They're routine. The legal community, in many ways, is like the media community. In many ways, it's a social circle. In many ways, there's groupthink. In many ways, it's just one patting the other on the back. I don't belong to social circles. I don't do that. I don't like it. As I tell you folks all the time, be independent. Think for yourselves. It doesn't mean everybody else is wrong. But our greatest inventions, our greatest entrepreneurs, our greatest products, the naysayers, the people who said no, the people who say it can't work, they're the problem. They're the problem. And notice, the people going after Trump and going after the people around him, they don't worry about it. Immunity, the Espionage Act, Look what's going on in the Manhattan case. Anybody, that's a crazy case. But they brought it. Look what's going on in the Georgia case, the RICO. That's crazy, but they brought it. So if you go to battle, legal battle, wearing mittens and they're wearing brass knuckles, you're going to lose. You're going to lose. You can have the most brilliant lawyers, the most experienced lawyers, the most wise lawyers on the face of the earth. But if they're not going to engage, then who cares? Does this make sense, Mr. Producer? School choice that we talk about now didn't just happen. It had to be fought for 20 years. Bill Clinton wasn't just held in contempt because the judge thought so. It had to be fought for. And I can go on and on and on. If I ever listened to the naysayers, well, I guess I'd just be like an antitrust lawyer. Or maybe something like that. But I'm not. We talk about the Constitution here. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
All over the world, our enemies are on the move. And in our own country, same thing. Things are tough between rising prices, election issues, a $34 trillion debt. But folks, there is good news. If you're smart, you can use these problems to your advantage. By making the right choices right now, you can keep your retirement money safe and even make more money in this climate. That's where Advantage Gold comes in. They're experts in helping Americans protect their savings with gold and silver. It's called diversification. Call Advantage Gold today, 800-900-8000. They'll send you a free 2024 gold and silver kit that tells you how to keep your money safe when things are bad. Tell them I sent you, and you may qualify for a special Mark Levin discount worth up to $1,300. Call Advantage Gold at 800-900-8000, 800-900-8000. See if you qualify for that special discount worth up to $1,300. That's 800-900-8000. Performance may vary. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. You should always consult your financial and tax professionals. Boy, the losers on CNN and MSNBC, they love this trial stuff. They lie about process. They lie about substance. They lie about the state law, federal law, the Constitution. They lie about the prosecutor and the judge. And worst of all, they lie about Trump. They just want a guilty verdict on something, anything. And the judge, well, he allowed the 34 charges to stand. He gave him a choice of 3 potential crimes. He said they don't actually have to all agree on the same one. His definition of intent is as broad as I've ever heard, which basically neutralizes the whole notion of intent. What exactly is the federal crime? Election crime, we still don't know, but it is certainly inferred and implied by the prosecution, despite the judge, saying that it shouldn't be. He allowed it in over and over and over again. I could go on and on and on. When we return, President Donald Trump will be with us. I'll be right back. This segment of the podcast is exclusively sponsored by Pure Talk. Pure Talk offers great coverage and can save your family money on your wireless bill every single month. Go to puretalk.com to find the plan that's right for you. Thank you again for listening, and thank you so much for this sponsorship, Pure Talk.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Welcome back, America. Welcome, President Trump. I would ask, how are you? But for the whole nation, this has been a complete, utter, contemptible disaster. I don't want to violate or cause you to violate your gag rule, but I don't even know what the hell the limits are to this gag rule, Mr. President. What do you make of what's happening to you right now?
It's a disaster. The judge is a disaster. You talk about somebody who's conflicted. There's never been a judge so conflicted. And it's just ruling after ruling for the other side. They have no case. But sometimes you're better off with a bad case and a great judge, and that's exactly what they have. It's a disaster for America. It's an embarrassment for America. And I think we're doing very well, but they have nothing. They don't even have a crime. They're trying to figure out what the crime is now. And I guess you probably heard they said they want to hear the instructions again. When you read them again, they take about an hour to read, and they've been made so complicated. That's, I guess, the hope. Maybe make it complicated so nobody understands what they're doing. But I'll tell you what, it is so unfair to this country, and nobody speaks about it more brilliantly than you. You are some great piece of work. I will tell you that, Mark.
Well, Mr. President, you have millions and millions of people here who are watching this, who are fed up with what's taking place. They know this war on you is a war on them and a war on this country. What is it like sitting there day in and day out, hearing these people say what they say about you, watching the rulings, watching all this? What do you make of our justice system after you're the target of the justice system?
Well, it started when I said a long time ago, right, 8 years ago almost, they spied in my campaign. You remember? And everyone said, they spied this. Nobody. Well, it turned out I was right about that. They spied in my campaign. I fired Comey, and I got rid of him. Don't forget, I inherited Comey. I had to fire him, and I fired him very early, and I took a lot of guys with him, a lot of bad people over there. And we did a job on the deep state, and then we had to do other things. We had to do a lot of things. We did a lot of things. We built 571 miles of wall. We had the safest border in history. We had everything was good. We were doing a real job. But these people, I guess they can't forget that I won an election that we weren't supposed to win. We won a big election that we weren't supposed to win. And then, as you know, we did much better, got 12 million more votes, got millions more votes the second time, millions and millions of more votes. And I will say we'd had tremendous spirit both times, 16 and 20, but there's never been spirit like what we have now, Mark, and I'm sure you feel it too. I've never seen anything like it, and I really believe I think I'm the same person. They like me. I always reel when they say we have two unpopular candidates, Biden and Trump. Well, I'm at 95% approval in the Republican Party. Everybody I endorse wins their election and all of that, but we have spirit, and he is unpopular, but he is really unpopular. He shouldn't. I mean, it's such an embarrassment for our country. He is the worst president in the history of our country, and Jimmy Carter is brilliant. His administration, by comparison, was brilliant. And I know you weren't a big fan, and you say the same thing. But there's never been a guy letting millions and millions of people come in to a country from countries that you don't want to know, from jails, from prisons, from mental institutions and insane asylums. They're all being emptied out. Terrorists. A very interesting fact, it was 67%, and now I understand it went up to 72% crime reduction in Venezuela. They're taking all of their criminals from Caracas and all these different places in Venezuela. They're taking their prisoners out of the jails. They're dumping them into the United States of America. It's unbelievable. It's not even believable, Mark. Not even believable.
Mr. President, the media pretend that the Biden regime's not behind this, despite all the DNA and the fingerprints. It's an amazing thing. You don't do anything, and you're charged with crimes. Biden's fingerprints and DNA are everywhere, and they pretend he's nowhere. My question to you is this. Here you are trying to run for President of the United States a second time. The Democrat Party in New York, obviously, is trying to handicap you, to cripple you.
100%.
The Democrat Party that's running the Department of Justice is trying to do the same thing. The Democrat Party in Georgia is trying to do the same thing.
Well,
if
they're
Biden
all working together, too, Mark.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, they're all working together. Georgia.
I think so.
Mr. Wade, the husband, I guess. Mr. Wade, I call her Fannie Wade. But Mr. Wade spent, days in the Justice Department in the White House, and I think Fannie was with him, his beautiful lover. She was with him, and they're working. Obviously, this one, who's ever seen anything like this? I'm gagged, so I can't talk about it other than to say, look who's working this case in New York. Look at it. Look who's working it. And you've covered that very well, but maybe not everybody knows. But this all comes out of the White House and comes out of DOJ. Even the civil cases. You know, I had civil cases where I had horrible judges, horrible judges. Totally rigged stuff. I mean, nobody would believe. We're like a third world country. We have rigged courts. We have bad elections, and we have no borders. Other than that, we're doing lovely. You know, just incredible. We have energy prices, by the way, and inflation going through the roof. Did you look at today's inflation numbers? It's going through the roof. This guy has no clue what he's doing.
What do you want to say, apart from this trial now, and it's difficult to say anything apart from this trial, but what do you want to say about the state of the nation today, the economy and so forth, the borders?
Well, the economy, the real economy is bad, and for the middle class and for people of lower income, I don't even know how they can live. We have the highest number ever of day-to-day living, meaning if they lose a job or if they stop that little tiny stream of money coming in, they can't even live. I don't know what you do. Think of it. You miss 2 days of work and you have no money to buy food. We have the highest number that we've ever had. We have people, even if they had jobs, and remember, the jobs that they have, they're called snapback jobs. They snap back from my administration. We had the best economy in history. We had the COVID situation where, frankly, we did a great job, and we're never given. I was given great credit for rebuilding the military, for knocking out ISIS, for a lot of things, for the economy, but never got the credit for what we did. You know, we had this dust coming over, and I always told you it was from. I told you it was from the Wuhan labs. First they blamed it on Italy and then France, and they blamed it on caves where you had bats 2,000 miles away. I said it came from Wuhan right from the beginning. But we had that, and then I turned over a country where the stock market was higher than just previous to it coming in. And it was we had an amazing country. We were energy independent. We were going to be energy dominant. We were going to be supplying all of Europe's oil and gas, and it was incredible. I stopped the Russia pipeline. You know, they kept saying, oh, he loves Russia. I like Russia. I got along well with Putin, but he said, I'd hate like hell to have you as an enemy.
Yeah, but you didn't love Iran. You didn't fund Iran.
Well, yeah, right. That's right.
Yeah.
Iran was a big one. I wouldn't let anybody buy. You buy oil from Iran, you can't do business with the United States. Iran was broke. I stopped China. They didn't buy one barrel of oil. I stopped every country from doing business. They had no money. They were broke. You wouldn't have had October 7th, which is a big love for you, the whole Israel thing that you love so much, right? You love Israel, and I understand that, and I do too. Look, I've been the best president ever for Israel.
Yes, you have.
And in Israel, they do love me. Here, I don't get.
Yes, they do.
Nearly, I just don't understand how a Democrat can vote for a guy like crooked Joe Biden. I don't understand. If you're a Democrat and you happen to be Israeli, or if you're any person
or Jewish,
and you happen to be Israeli or love Israel or be Jewish, how can you vote for this guy?
You know, I'm Jewish, and I'll never vote for this guy. Never would anyway, but some people put their party ahead of everything else, Mr. President. That's the problem. But that said,
I think it's habit, Mark. I actually think it's habit. It's like, you know, you'll have a soda that doesn't taste good, but you keep drinking it, right? It's like crazy. But I do believe it's habit. But you look, you know, within Israel, I think I'm 98% inside of Israel. And with the conservative vote, the Hasidic vote, I'm at like the highest numbers any
they love
time
you.
Anybody. But, you know, when you have a lot of people, and I say it all the time, you have Jewish people in this country that do not like Israel. And maybe beyond that.
I can name a whole bunch of them.
And they're even protesting. You know, they become Palestinians. They even protest because those protesters, they come from someplace.
Yeah.
But it's crazy. It's crazy when you look at what's going on.
As a personal note for the audience, you and I, it's amazing when we sit down and eat, isn't it? Do you still eat what I eat? Do I still eat what you eat? That is, we like our steaks well done. I think we have the same habit, right? Yes.
We eat food that
we should.
Some people would say is not the healthiest food, but we're still kicking and a lot of people aren't, right? You know. Hey, Mark, they tell me all the time, oh, you should do this, don't eat this, don't eat that. In the meantime, they're trying to recover from the worst of problems. And here we go. We just keep chugging along, right? So I don't know. Who knows what's good? Hey, Mark, who knows what's good? Maybe the stuff that's bad is really the stuff that's good, right? That's
All
what,
I know is
that's
I
what
like
you
it.
and I hope, anyway.
Yes. And how's the family doing through all this? The First Lady? and
Good.
stuff?
I mean, look, it's a nasty thing. These are nasty people. These are fascists. I don't even believe it's really Biden so much because I don't think he's smart enough to know what the hell's going on. I really don't. But he's got to approve it. But it's his people that surround him on that beautiful Resolute desk in the Oval Office, and they are nasty people. They're bad people, and probably hate our country. Probably they hate our country. Anybody that allows millions of people to come into our country totally unchecked. I mean, like, they're just walking in now by the millions. And that to me is well, the biggest problem is nuclear, because the nuclear power is so great today that, and we have a man negotiating with Putin and President Xi of China that I don't think he can read or write.
They eat his lunch.
I can't put two sentences together. It's terrible. And I know these people. I know them very well. They're at the top of their games. And Biden is just not the right person. Look, Ukraine would have never happened. The attack on Israel would have never happened. And remember, and this was a Democrat that said it on Deface the Nation a couple of weeks ago, actually. I saw it, another one. A Democrat congressman said, well, whether you like Trump or not, Iran was broke under Trump. They were broke. They were ready to make a deal. We would have had a deal within a week after the election. But then this guy came in, took off all the sanctions, took off everything, and China went back to buying their millions of barrels of oil, millions and millions and millions of barrels. And Iran is now rich, and they've also taken over, as you know, Iraq. Another brilliant move. They go in, we blow the hell out of. These are two nations that were similar in military strength, and they fought each other for centuries, essentially, under different names, religious. And they'd move it 1 foot, 2 feet, then back, they'd fight. But it was too equal. And then we blow up one of them, and now they have. So they have, and you don't know what a big. Remember, I used to say, don't go into, but I said it as a civilian.
I remember.
Say, don't go into Iraq, but if you do, keep the oil. Well, they went in, and they didn't keep the oil. Iraq has $350 billion in cash, and it's like a subsidiary of Iran. In other words, we did the job that Iran's been trying to do, or meaning that section has been trying to do for 1,000 years. We did the job. We blew them up. We blew up one of the two powers. And so now you have a big power in the Middle East. You don't have two. They were checking each other. What a shame. What a shame. That was a Republican president that did that.
What do you want to tell hardworking Americans, some of whom usually vote Democrats, union, non-union, blue-collar workers? I've been calling you the blue-collar billionaire. What do you want to tell them? Why should they vote for you other than Biden, who claims to be the greatest union president in American history?
So we got the most votes, and this is acknowledged by the other side. This isn't me. We got more votes than any sitting president in history, and we lost, okay? I was told if we got 63 million, which is what I got in 2016, I said, you can't lose, and we got close to 75 million votes. We got much more than that, but that's what they say. That's more than any sitting president in history. And just to go, before I totally give you that beautiful answer, if I didn't, I wouldn't have run. If I really thought I lost the election, I wouldn't have run, because I would have lost. I was, well, there's something missing. But we won by tremendous numbers. I want to make America great again. It's very simple. We had it going so good. It was so good. The reason I'm leading by so much now, Mark, is because people remember back 4 and 5 years ago. They remember where we had the best employment numbers ever. There's never been numbers like that. We had the best economy ever. We rebuilt our military. I got the largest tax cuts in history, the largest regulation cuts in history. This place was humming. And by the way, so often I'm asked, can we ever get together as a country, get along, meaning the left and the right? And I used to sort of say no. And then just before COVID coming in, I had a meeting with pollsters, people that Fabrizio and John McLaughlin, both of them. And they said if George Washington and Abraham Lincoln came back from the dead and they ran, they couldn't beat you. They wouldn't even come close. We were so good, and we were good when we finished it out. But we were there's never been a country so strong and so good as us. And people were coming up from the radical left, wanting to meet, wanting to get together. I'm telling you, the country was coming together. Mm-hmm. COVID spread that out. We had to go back. We had to do things. Otherwise, we would have lost the country. I mean, literally, we would have lost the country. We would have had a depression, the likes of which nobody's ever seen before. But COVID, you go up to that point, everybody, Mark, it was happening. And now I have that expression, success will bring this country together. And we're going to have great success. We're going to drill, baby, drill. We're going to do tremendous. There's so many things that we can do. You know, we have more liquid gold under our feet than any other country, including Saudi Arabia and including Russia. And we're going to use that. We're going to pay down debt. We're going to cut taxes even further. You know, I gave the biggest tax cut in history and regulation.
One second.
Biggest
Mr.
tax
Producer,
cut in history.
Can we blow through this commercial?
We did more revenue the following year by a lot than we did with the higher
taxes. We're going to blow through this commercial, whether I'm allowed to or not.
But it does. People were they were incentivized, and they were doing great. So we're going to make our country, to answer your question, we're going to make our country great again, and we're going to do it fast. A big problem is these millions of people that this horrible, horrible president is allowing into our country. He's allowing them in from all over the world. They're coming in from the Congo in Africa, came in the other night, a big load from the Congo, and prisons Communist in the China. Congo. But they're coming in, and nobody's ever seen anything like it. They're coming in from Africa, from Asia, from the Middle East, and from South America, all over South America. And they're coming in from prisons, and they're coming in from mental institutions, and many, many terrorists are coming in, record levels, and human traffickers. They're destroying the fabric of our country. And then when I say that, they say, oh, he's racist, he's racist. That's all they're good at is misinformation and disinformation. That's all they're good at, and cheating on elections, frankly.
Now, Mr. President, when you say America, you're talking about all Americans, black, white, brown, whatever. It's not just white Americans,
well,
so you're saying...
Look what I had. I had a rally in the Bronx the other day.
Yeah.
I had 25,000 people at least. They couldn't even get into the park. They had more people that couldn't get in than got in. You couldn't they couldn't let them in. Too many people. It was so beautiful, Mark. It was love. And it was black, white. It was brown. It was everything was there. Everybody was there. It was a beautiful thing to see. And there wasn't one heckler. I didn't have one heckle. An hour and a half speech, maybe more than that in the sun. It was hot. And not one heckler, not one screaming out something obscene like happens sometimes. It was love. It was a love fest. All different people from different parts of the world. And it was, I mean, I'm sure that you commented on it. It was a beautiful thing to see. And you take a look at Biden today. While I'm in the Biden, show trial, it's all started by him. It's all Biden stuff. He's in Philadelphia campaigning. Nobody showed up. He's in this little basketball arena. Nobody. It's lucky they have a few students in the school. They were the only ones he's speaking before these little kids. The whole thing is crazy, but nobody showed up. There's no spirit, and the reason we're so ahead in the polls is because people remember what we had 4 or 5 years ago. They remember. We can have it again.
Well, Mr. President, I know I speak for everybody listening here. We wish you all the best. We're watching what's going on, what's being done to you, and we will not be deterred under any circumstances. As a matter of fact, we're going to be empowered by the whole damn thing. We don't care what the media say. We don't care what your enemies say. We know right from wrong and good from evil. And I want to say God bless to you and to your family. And thank you for what you're doing. I'm sorry you're having to go through this.
Well, thank you very much, and say hello to Julie and everybody. You're an incredible voice. You don't even know how important your voice is. Your voice is so powerful, and just keep it up. You're a very, very big factor in this country, and I appreciate it. Thank you, Mark.
You're very kind. God bless you. God bless you.
Mark Levin.
We're so fortunate in this country to have a military of men and women who voluntarily lay their lives on the line for us. But when their service ends, transition to civilian life can be very difficult, especially now. Access to housing, employment, even their earned VA benefits can be very difficult. That's why Pure Talk proudly helps support America's Warrior Partnership and their mission to prevent veteran suicide. This is very important. You can join the fight when you switch to Pure Talk's 5G service and help Pure Talk support this great charity. Remember, Pure Talk was founded by a veteran. Through the end of the month, they'll match every dollar donated up to $50,000. Folks, choose a wireless company that shares your values. Upgrade your cell phone service to America's most dependable 5G network. Just $20 a month. Go to puretalk.com/Levin. puretalk.com/Levin. Make the switch, folks. That's puretalk.com/Levin. Levin. For superior cell phone service that's half the price of Verizon, AT&T, or T-Mobile. And to help Pure Talk help our vets. Well, there you have it. I'm sure the enemies of America will parse it and say, oh, he said this, he said that. This is a very, very decent man, regardless of what they say. They are indecent. He loves the country. He wants what's best for the country. He knows what's happening to the country. This poor guy sitting there in that star chamber week after week after week, now sitting there waiting to hear what a jury in Manhattan has to say based on a corrupt judge, on a Soros prosecutor, that they've dragged this country into that courtroom. They've dragged this campaign into that courtroom. And the goal is to defeat Trump, to defeat the Republican Party, to defeat anybody who opposes the Marxist Democrat Party left. And the Democrat Party in New York, and its judges, and its lawyers, and its bar association, with very few exceptions, they are the Praetorian Guard for Joe Biden, who is corrupt, who is evil, who is power-hungry, and who uses government to enrich himself, enrich his friends, and impose his will on people he doesn't like. That is an autocracy. That is tyranny. And you're witnesses to history. But witnesses to history don't survive. Make history. You will decide on the first Tuesday in November whether this kind of tyranny continues and in fact gets worse into a totalitarian form of society, or whether we have a fighting chance. And you heard this man. He's a historic figure. He still has energy. Listen to him. He wants to fight. And not for himself. He's fighting for us. He doesn't need any of this. None of it. They want to put the scarlet letter on his forehead. They want to call him convicted felon. That's what the Biden campaign said. And Biden is behind it. There doesn't have to be a signed agreement. There doesn't have to be an email or a text. He's made enough public comments so the Democrat Party apparatchiks, whether they're wearing black robes or white robes, whether they're prosecutors or jurors, they hear him. They hear what Biden is saying. They hear what his media are saying. They don't need a Western Union message to tell them what to do. They know what to do, and they're doing it. I'll be right back. We're so fortunate in this country to have a military of men and women who voluntarily lay their lives on the line for us. But when their service ends, transition to civilian life can be very difficult, especially now. Access to housing, employment, even their earned VA benefits can be very difficult. That's why Pure Talk proudly helps support America's Warrior Partnership and their mission to prevent veteran suicide. This is very important. You can join the fight when you switch to Pure Talk's 5G service and help Pure Talk support this great charity. Remember, Pure Talk was founded by a veteran. Through the end of the month, they'll match every dollar donated up to $50,000. Folks, choose a wireless company that shares your values. Upgrade your cell phone service to America's most dependable 5G network. Just $20 a month. Go to puretalk.com/Levin. puretalk.com/Levin. Make the switch, folks. That's puretalk.com/Levin. Levin. For superior cell phone service that's half the price of Verizon, AT&T, or T-Mobile. And to help Pure Talk help our vets.
America's most powerful conservative voice. The Mark Levin Show. Dial in now. 877-381-3811.
Now, there are radio hosts in America who would turn to Mr. Producer or their producer, and they'd say, you know, that part where he said XYZ, can you create a clip of that and send it to the media? Wouldn't they, Mr. Producer? And so then the cable networks, among others, would play it with the spin, and it was on XYZ's program. I don't do that. I certainly wouldn't do it to a friend. I certainly wouldn't do it to somebody who I want to become the next president of the United States. But I don't play that game. It's a ratings game. I don't need to play a ratings game. We are the ratings. But for him to take that much time, it's almost a half hour, to speak to us on this program, given what's going on the last 5 or 6 weeks, today, what's going to go on tomorrow, did he not sound remarkable? And he's as sharp as a tack, as they say. Then the mumbling and fumbling and so forth. And so the media are so disgusting. This is why you hate them. In fact, this is why the overwhelming majority of Americans hate them. As a matter of fact. What do I owe you, Mr. Producer? Well, as you know, the world's full of problems right now, here at home and overseas. Joe Biden literally has nothing to run on. So he has to create fictions. He has to create hate. He has to create controversy. He has to have us at each other's throats. And that's what his campaign plan is. You like it? He doesn't talk about the spirit of America. He doesn't embrace the history of America. He trashes it. He doesn't talk up American workers. He doesn't talk up American spirit. Nothing. Woe is me, Joe Biden. On behalf of America, you're racists. You're ingrates. You're doing great. Why are you complaining? The border's wide open. So what? What are you going to do about it? Inflation, interest rates up, buying power down, the value of your pension down. Joe Biden can't fix what he broke. And so he keeps breaking things. Our entire justice system has been broken under Joe Biden. He broke it. Purposely. Now he wants to give a presidential speech about it. Take the high ground as a statesman. It's a sad day in American history. I can write a speech. Because he's a fraud. Joe Biden's been a fraud his entire life. He's a walking, talking psychopath. Look what he's doing to our country. Look what he's doing overseas. I think I've told you before. Several years ago, the first time Julie and I sat down with the president and the first lady, I think there were others there too, at the New Jersey club. I'm not a frequent visitor, but I've been there, I think, twice, maybe. Mar-a-Lago, maybe 3 times over the course of, 8 years? Something like that. I don't know. Maybe I'm off, but not a lot. But they are fun places with great patriots, and he is the nicest host you will ever meet. Ever. He's so proud of what he's built. He's so happy you're there. He wants you to enjoy the occasion. He tells you what he thinks is the best that's out there. But anyway, on this first occasion, I ordered a well-done steak with ketchup, Mr. Producer. I've told this story. Little did I know he ordered a well-done steak with ketchup. And they both come at the same time. And my wife, I said to her, you see that? If the president can eat this, I can eat this. And he was like a big smile on his face, too. He said, you do that? I said, absolutely. And he drinks a Diet Coke, and I drink a Diet Coke. Now, I don't drink as much soda as I used to. But that said, that was funny. And one other time, and I think it was at his club in Florida. He's built all these things, America. Joe Biden destroys things. Joe Biden is a crook. Joe Biden uses official office to enrich his family. This guy, Trump, he's an entrepreneur. He's a builder. He's a developer. He's employed tens of thousands of people of all races and backgrounds and religions. He didn't care. His contributions to his communities, just through, his taxes and the taxes of the employees. The prosperity that he's created, the skylines that he's created, and you compare him to Biden? Look how the media changed the script all the time. They use Trump's success against him. Well, they cover up Biden's crooked acts. Biden can't finish a sentence. They want you to believe Trump can't either. Trump's out there. He's talking to tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people. Tonight he spoke to millions of people. He tells you what he thinks and what he feels. And that's what you like about him. They take the words that he speaks and they twist them. Always a racist, always Hitler, always this and that. And yet they're the racists and they're the Hitlers. They're the ones who embrace Hamas. They're the ones who embrace the Democrat Party that supported slavery and segregation and today is a racist party and an anti-Semitic party. It's them. It's not him. It's grotesque what's taking place. But anyway, so in this other club, he says, Mark, come with me. He may have said Mark and Julie, but when it comes to food, I'm laser focused, Mr. Producer. And it's a buffet. And he's so proud of it. He says, look at these shrimp. These are the biggest shrimp anyway. And they were big. And he says, take some shot, take some shot. So he takes the little ladle and he puts the cocktail sauce on my plate, Mr. Producer. And he says, Mark, look at this. And they're carving up some kind of beef. And he says to the gentleman, how are you tonight? It's good to see you. It's good to see you, Mr. President. He says, Mark likes it well done, sort of the end cut. So he remembers. And so they do. I'm just telling you, he does this for everybody. Everybody. This is who he is. He helps people. He'll pick up the phone and make calls. He may even give them some money if they need it. He doesn't talk about it. He just does it. The media do not want you to know this man. They don't want you to get to know him. But you know him anyway. But they don't want you to know him. Period. It's a terrible, terrible thing. You have people talking about him who don't know him. Or who have known him, but feel jaded, like they're in 7th grade or something. Now, I want you to listen to this guy, Ken Burns. You've heard of him. He's made a lot of money off PBS, being a filmmaker. He did a real kiss-ass film on FDR, left out all the horrible aspects of FDR, which is what these phony historians do. He left out the part, where FDR prevented Jews on a boat from actually entering the United States, and the boat returned, of course, to Europe, and most of them were exterminated. Forgot the part where an assistant secretary of state, a former roommate and close friend of FDR's, was over there at the Department of State blocking Jews from getting visas to come into the country at the height of the Holocaust, only to be found out in the late 1944 by Congress, but FDR knew about it. He forgot the part where he refused to sign the anti-lynching bill, the federal bill that hit his desk. They make excuses for it, but he didn't want to lose, quote unquote, the South in 1940. That's right. and the way he offended the NAACP. They forgot that part. And I could go on about the great FDR. But here's Ken Burns about Trump. He knows nothing about Trump. Nothing. Cut 6, go.
You take that on, and it's not Israel or Palestine. It's not red or blue. It's not black. I mean, just tell me what your advice is for people that want to get this right.
Is that a tough question or what? By Nicole Wallace on MSLSD. It's not about Israel or Palestine. It's not red or blue. It's not black or white. And yet that's all they do. They support Hamas against Israel. They hate conservatives. Not black or white. They're pushing racism. They want a race war, it appears, left and right. But it's not about what we actually do 24/7 here on MSLSD and definitely on the Nicole Wallace program. Ken, what do you say to all this? Go ahead.
I realized people said, oh, you're not going to talk about Israel and Palestine. I said, of course I am. Of course, how can you possibly ignore this 800-pound gorilla in the room, just as you can't ignore the presumptive, 4-time indicted Republican
gorilla
nominee.
In the room.
You see how this goes? This guy is a historian. He has no concept of American history. There's no concept. No concept of the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. No concept of due process and equal protection. No concept of the purpose of a jury trial. None. 4 times indicted. That's enough. That's all we need to know. And all we need is one conviction in Manhattan. One! Then we have a felon. A convicted felon running for... This is what we get from Ken Burns. He's a putz. He's a little puke. Go ahead.
Exactly. And so what I was trying to say is that, look, you have 3 great religions. They're all children of Abraham. They all believe in the sanctity of human life. They all have a claim to this land.
They all don't have Islamists. Again, not speaking of Muslims, Islamists who are Muslims. But there are Muslims who reject it. So I want to be clear. There are no Islamist likes in Judaism or in Christianity. Why does he pretend otherwise? We have Islamist states, like Iran. Like Iran, we have Islamist terrorist groups. So many we can't even keep count of them. We have terrorist lists here in the United States and in Europe and other Western countries. You have Islamists trying to overthrow governments in Egypt. Trying to overthrow governments in Jordan, Saudi Arabia. Overthrew Yemen, overthrew Lebanon, overthrew Iran. Islamists. So Ken Burns is a propagandist. You don't have that in the 2 other major faiths. Go ahead.
Turned it shamefully into a perpetual graveyard. And I just said, God does not distinguish between the dead. And then you take the onus, well, I'm for this. Okay. Nobody likes oppression in any form. Well, I'm for that. And you
all right, he's a mealy-mouthed radical lib, Democrat, vote for Biden. It's not Biden's fault. You know, the usual pablum. And this is how they speak. But, Trump, now there, you got 4 times indicted. Trump, he's the bad man. Not Biden, who's funded Iran and the Islamists and these terrorist organizations. No. Not Biden, who has his foot on the throat of Israel. No. Not Biden, who has a border wide open. So all kinds of people can come into the country. And by that, I don't mean race and religion. I mean criminals, terrorists, drug dealers, damaging our society. Biden, no, he's a good man. I guess we need to indict Biden, don't we, Mr. Producer, so we can say the 10-time indicted Biden. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
We're so fortunate in this country to have a military of men and women who voluntarily lay their lives on the line for us. But when their service ends, transition to civilian life can be very difficult, especially now. Access to housing, employment, even their earned VA benefits can be very difficult. That's why Pure Talk proudly helps support America's Warrior Partnership and their mission to prevent veteran suicide. This is very important. You can join the fight when you switch to Pure Talk's 5G service and help Pure Talk support this great charity. Remember, Pure Talk was founded by a veteran. Through the end of the month, they'll match every dollar donated up to $50,000. Folks, choose a wireless company that shares your values. Upgrade your cell phone service to America's most dependable 5G network. Just $20 a month. Go to puretalk.com/Levin. puretalk.com/Levin. Make the switch, folks. That's puretalk.com/Levin. Levin. For superior cell phone service, that's half the price of Verizon, AT&T, or T-Mobile. And to help Pure Talk help our vets. You know, ladies and gentlemen, Robert the Weirdo, a.k.a. De Niro, he hates us, millions of us. Therefore, never again will I watch one of his movies because, you know what, folks? The feeling is mutual. Never again. Now, my wife would tell you, if she were standing next to me, you don't watch movies anyway. Well, that's typically true. But nonetheless, I have no intention of starting now. Where am I, Mr. Producer? All right, here we go. I'll be right back.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. Congratulations to my granddaughter, Sloane. She got a character award. A good character, great character award today, Mr. Producer. She's a sweet little young lady, as is Asher, a sweet little young man, our grandkids. Now, anything but sweet. So Joe Biden goes to Philadelphia today. He's desperate to win Pennsylvania. And so he goes to Philadelphia only when he needs black votes and union votes, and sometimes they're the same, obviously. And only during election time. You can mark it on your calendar, the election cycle. What the hell has he done for black people, period, let alone black people in Philadelphia? I would really love to know. Give me 3 things. In his 50 years in Washington, D.C., other than stand in the doorhouse way to try and prevent little black kids from going to school with little white kids, yeah, he was one of them. Other than passing in 1994 as the sponsor, proudly, a federal crime bill that disproportionately affected the black communities in our inner cities. Wow. Now he says that was a mistake. Of course, he wants black votes now. When he wants white votes, he did that. Now he wants black votes. He's done nothing for the black community. You know how I know? Because he's done nothing for any community. What has he done? He uses the federal treasury as a campaign fund to redistribute wealth to the richest part of our society, for giving tens of billions of dollars in student loans for colleges and universities. Then he opens the border to any Tom, Dick, and Juan and whoever else, Muhammad, who wants to come across the border. What's a Swiss name? I don't even know. Gunderston? And anyway, anybody from any corner of the globe to come into our country, regardless of who they are, regardless of their backgrounds. He doesn't care. He doesn't care. But our inner cities and other parts of our country do care. We're overwhelmed with foreigners in our country. But don't say it. No. Don't speak out of your mouth what you see with your eyes. No. We don't do that, you see. Power is to control thought. Power is to control words. Power is to control communication. And that's where we are today. Just listen to what the Democrats say, whether they're in their media, whether they are tenured professors, whether they're politicians. Digest it mentally and spew it. That's it. Otherwise, you're fill in the blank. Does Biden ever go to a rally and talk up America? Does he ever go to a rally and talk about the opportunities in America? Does he ever go to a rally and create a patriotic environment? No, he never does any of these things. I'll prove it to you. Here he is in Philadelphia today. And look how condescending he is. Look how he stereotypes. Cut 15, go.
I know it's natural to wonder if democracy you hear about, actually works for you. When justice is denied, how can it be working for you? When promises are broken, how can it be working for you? When you have to be 10 times better than everyone else to get the same shot, how can it be working for you? I get it. And I know there's a lot of misinformation out there. So I came today to speak the truth. The truth about promises made and promises kept.
There you go. It's hopeless. It's hopeless. You black folks, without government, without Democrats, you cannot succeed. That's his message. America sucks. Ignore the truth, you see. Ignore what you see around you. America sucks, especially if you're part of the base of the Democrat Party that is very blasé about Biden, but we got to turn him out. We got to turn the base out. So how do we do it? Through hate. Hate America. And we're here to save you. Joe Biden's been in government for 50 years at the highest levels of government. United States Senator, chairing committees, including the Judiciary Committee. He's been Vice President of the United States, President of the United States. He takes no responsibility for anything. America is sort of this amorphous thing. And it's you, all you racists out there, of whatever color you are. Cut 16, go.
What do you think he would have done on January 6th if black Americans had stormed it?
You know, this is the thing. What do you think he would have done? What do you think? He didn't. They didn't. Biden is the definition of a demagogue and a race baiter. That's what he is. What would he have done if it was black people storming the Capitol building? So what would he have done if it was a large number of minorities in 2020, in the summer of 2020? What did he do? Did he send out the National Guard? No. What did he do? But Biden has to talk this way. He's got nothing. He's used race throughout his life. He's used race throughout his career. He goes on one side of racism to the other side of racism. Most Americans are not systematically racist. Most Americans want to get along. Most Americans understand that we're all red-blooded Americans. And when the enemy says hate America, they don't care if you're black, white, brown, yellow, red, albino. It doesn't matter. Patriotism is patriotism. But Joe Biden doesn't preach allegiance to the country. He doesn't even talk about our principles and values, ever. He never talks about opportunity, individual liberty, personal responsibility. None of it. Ever. He's a racist, and he's a race baiter. That's all he ever was, and that's what he is. Go ahead.
What do you think would happen if black Americans had stormed the Capitol? I don't think he'd be talking about pardons.
Excuse me. It was Donald Trump who pushed through the Criminal Reform Act. Not you, you clown. You pushed through a different law that targeted black communities, that targeted crack with higher penalties than cocaine, because crack is cheaper and was being used in the inner cities, and cocaine is a different issue. Like his donors, like the cocaine they found at the White House. Well, I don't know where that came from. I have a thought. Anyway. But look at the incendiary propaganda. Look at the hate. And there's an angry, old, racist throwback. That's what he is. That's what he is. And everybody knows it. And nothing he says is going to improve the lives of black Americans. Nothing. When the cost of groceries are going sky high, it affects everybody across the board, particularly those who have less money than most. When utility bills go sky high because he's destroyed energy independence, it affects everybody, but especially those who have less money than most. He can't go in there and talk about what he's done to improve the economy, to create prosperity and opportunity anywhere in the United States, let alone the inner cities. He can't do that in Philadelphia. So there he is, with racism, with hate, with fear-mongering, which is an attack on the foundations of this very society. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
We have a friend of the program, a friend of our family, actually, David McCormick, who's running for the U.S. Senate in Pennsylvania. Very tough state. He's got a stealth candidate. He's running against Bob Casey, who's basically been running on his father's name and reputation for decades. And yet he is quite radical, quite left-wing, isn't he, David?
Oh, my. He really is. He really is. He's shown no leadership, Mark. But the thing about him is he's voted 98% of the time with Joe Biden. 98%. So all this out-of-control spending, you can thank Bob Casey. The war on fossil fuels, you can thank Bob Casey. The wide-open border, you can thank Bob Casey. And so what's happened is he's out of step with Pennsylvania. And today was a good example of it. We had a great event. Betsy DeVos was in town, and we had an event with Moms for Liberty. And we talked about transgender males, biological males competing with women in sports. I'm a father of 6 daughters, Dean and I, as you know, Mark. And so this is a crazy, absolutely guts Title IX, guts college sports is absolutely indefensible. And Bob Casey, just as an example of how far out of touch, has been a co-sponsor of the Equality Act, which requires transgender bathroom access and allows biological men to play in girls' sports if they identify as female. And so this is where I don't know how this has happened. I guess the Democratic Party has moved so far to the left, and Bob Casey's just moved with them, but it's not where Pennsylvania is.
And are you able to get the message out? Because I'm sure the free media there is very difficult on you.
Well, listen, I'm getting the message out in lots of different ways, and it's showing. I think people are increasingly aware that Casey hasn't been a leader, but even worse, he's been a complete follower of Joe Biden. Joe Biden's very unpopular in Pennsylvania. And so obviously we're doing the normal media and so forth. But I'm taking the case to the people. And so we have 67 counties in Pennsylvania. In the last 5 months, I've done all 67 counties. I've traveled 42,000 miles across the Commonwealth. I've done 350 events. Mm-hmm. And the purpose of that is to make the case of here's the kind of leadership Pennsylvania needs. Here's the crisis we face. And Bob Casey's failed you. It's time to retire Bob Casey and put an outsider in place who's going to go to Washington and shake things up a bit.
You know, David McCormick, I see Biden comes to Philadelphia, but he only comes to Philadelphia, at least most often, every election cycle. I can't think of a single damn thing he's done for the city of Philadelphia, let alone the black community in Philadelphia. Can you?
No. And that's why you're seeing the movement in the polls that you're seeing, Mark. So you think about these, three big problems we face in Pennsylvania, and you know these well. Inflation. Under Joe Biden, prices are up on average more than 20%, and that's killing working families. 60% of Pennsylvanians live paycheck to paycheck, so they're getting squeezed on food, fuel, and rent. So that's number one. Two, this wide open border is killing Pennsylvanians with fentanyl. I was at the border 10 days ago. I saw it for myself in Yuma, Arizona. We lost 4,000 Americans last year to fentanyl. Third problem is crime. As you know, in Philadelphia, you have a radical district attorney named Larry Krasner, who has essentially let violent crime run crazy. It's moving into the suburbs. And so if you think about those three issues, those aren't Republican problems. Those aren't Democratic problems. Those aren't black problems or white problems. Those are problems for everybody. And that's why you see this enormous failure of leadership, and people are saying, oh, my God, I can't imagine another 4 years of that. And it sure was a lot safer. It sure seemed the border was a lot more secure. The economy seemed a lot better under the administration of President Trump. And I think that's what you're seeing is why people are throwing up their hands and saying, listen, I don't even want to talk about Republican or Democrat anymore. I'm going to talk about leadership and the kind of leadership that's required to change the direction of our great country. And, of course, as you know from our talks, that's why I'm running. I think we're in deep trouble, and we need people who are going to get in there and fight for our future. And if we don't change the direction, we're going to all deeply regret it.
Now, people all over Pennsylvania are affected by illegal immigration. It is so massive. It is so ubiquitous. And it's hurting every community across that state, which I know well. It's my home state, as you know. But I have to assume it's especially hurting places like Philadelphia and Pittsburgh and some of the smaller cities in the central part of the state, where migrants just naturally go looking for jobs and so forth. What's the impact on the state of Pennsylvania?
Well, there's two for sure, and a third I hope never shows itself. The first is this fentanyl crisis, and that's everywhere, Mark. I mean, that fentanyl, it crosses the border in Yuma. Half of it comes through Yuma. It takes 48 to 72 hours to find its way to Pennsylvania. It goes down the main arteries, 80, 81, 76, and it finds itself in the cities, in the small towns. It's pervasive. It's everywhere. And if you talk to sheriffs or district attorneys, as I do, this problem is a big deal because that fentanyl gets cut into other forms of drug. It's highly volatile. That's why we have such a high death rate. It's highly addictive. So that's pervasive. We at the same time have 13 sanctuary counties or cities, and this is where the economic burden, the people coming and flocking to these areas is really playing a toll on the citizens of that community. Healthcare costs, crime, everything else. So that's the second big issue. The third, and man, I hope this doesn't come true. But when I was on the border, just 10 days ago, 2 a.m. on board with the Border Patrol, 50 people walked across the border right in front of me. In that group of 50, there were 5 Syrians, military-age men, and there were 5 or 6 Chinese nationals. There's been 10 million illegal immigrants. There's been 160 last year on the terrorist watch list. And as you know well, Mark, it only took 13 to take down the towers. So I'm deeply worried that we have embedded risk, terrorist threats in our country through these 10 million that have come across the border. And my God, I hope we don't pay the price for that, but I'm deeply worried we will. And that would, of course, affect us all. So that's how I see it playing out today in Pennsylvania.
Well, your seat is crucial. It's crucial to Pennsylvania. It's crucial to the nation. We got to take the Senate, win the presidency, hold the House. And if people want to help you anywhere in the country, especially Pennsylvania, where do they go, Dave McCormick? DaveMcCormickPA.com. And that's where they can find out about me. And as I said, I'm everywhere across the Commonwealth. So you can find out on my website information about rallies and opportunities to get together. And I'll answer any question. I'll talk about any issue. I think this is a time for dramatic change, and I'm excited about it, Mark, and I think I'm going to win.
because the country needs change, and 80% of Pennsylvanians think the country's heading in the wrong direction. And so I think they're dying for new leadership.
Well, I know you personally. Family does. You're a fantastic individual. You're a great leader. You're a combat veteran. And here you are, putting everything aside, trying to save your country. I hope you folks will support Dave McCormick all throughout Pennsylvania and the country. He's a fantastic candidate. God bless you. We're going to have you back soon, my brother.
God bless you, Mark. Thanks.
We'll be right back.
Mark Levin, the thunder on the right. Call in now, 877-381-3811.
Well, what do we have here? Well, let's look here. Mr. Producer saw this and shot it over to me. The chief Islamo-Nazi leader, that would be the chief Islamo-Nazi leader in Tehran, Iran, put out this on the internet. Ready? Dear university students in the United States of America, you are standing on the right side of history. You have now formed a branch of the resistance front and have begun an honorable struggle in the face of your government's ruthless pressure, which openly supports Zionists. Of course, they're helping to fund all this, and Biden's helping fund them. So here we have this mass murder. Here we have this subhuman. Here we have one of the world-leading terrorists congratulating our faculty and students. Students for Justice in Palestine, a.k.a. the Hitler Youth, need to be investigated. The Hamas front group, CARE, needs to be investigated. It won't be by this administration, for sure. Ken Burns thinks this is all great. Everybody's the same, except for Trump. He's the real Hitler. What a creep, puke, putz, schmuck. I just made up one word, Mr. Producer. I think it fits. Will Joe Biden speak after the Trump verdict? Now, the Trump administration has put this out. They've even been very detailed about it. It won't be a campaign speech. It'll be a presidential speech. And this is the way Marxists and fascists operate. They create the conditions about which they later criticize others. Biden has learned well from Klansmen and neo-Nazis. What do you mean, Mark? I mean, in his early days as a racist segregationist, he's learned well. And today he knows well, too, as a special pleader for the Islamo-Nazi regime in Iran, as a special pleader to protect the leadership, such as it is, of the Hamas subhuman terrorists. Oh, yeah. Biden's got it all figured out. He's got more in common with them than he does with us. Trust me on this. The way he speaks, the way he screams, the demagoguery. He's got the state-run media behind him. But then Jean-Pierre on Air Force One is asked about Biden speaking after the verdict, because it's the 2024 election. Cut 7, go.
Does the White House have any plan to make a statement or do anything once the verdict actually happens?
I'm going to be super mindful, not going to speak to it. 2024, this is an election period. I'm just not going to speak to it. I do not speak and will not speak on any ongoing cases, even in a hypothetical, speculative way. I'm just not going to speak to it.
Well, that's good, because your boss does, which is why the New York Times writes down what he says and regurgitates it when he does it in these meetings. Cut 8, go.
Was the president aware in advance that his campaign was going to give a press conference at the courthouse yesterday?
To that, that's for the campaign to speak to.
But the president's awareness.
This is not a conversation. I don't talk about the campaign with the president, so I would refer you to the campaign.
You have spoken about how the justice system is functioning on its own and the president doesn't get involved. And yet when his campaign comes out in front of the courthouse and speaks, it cuts against that.
I mean, yesterday when I was asked about the question, I said, hey, I'm not going to talk about a political candidate. It's 2024. But I did talk about the importance of having a justice system that works for all, and just really talked about it more broadly and what this president has been able to do. And that's what I talked about.
Exactly what has this president been able to do? Nothing. Nothing good. To her credit, that's right, I give credit where credit's due. Mika Brzezinski's not buying any of this. She didn't like the fact that Robert the Weirdo was out there in front of the courthouse spewing his filth. So we give credit where credit's due around here. Mika Brzezinski speaking with somebody named Michael Tyler, who is the communications director, I think, of the Biden campaign. Cut 9, go.
Michael Tyler, who, as we mentioned, also spoke at the news conference outside the courthouse. I guess I have to ask you why you decided to speak there and to have the campaign show up at the courthouse. I don't know. It doesn't feel right to me at all.
Now, let me just say again, good for her. Good for her. Go ahead.
Thank you for having me. We showed up there because the news media has been incessantly posted up there day in and day out for weeks. And so, as we said last week...
Why do you lie like this? Why do you lie? You're there because the media's there. Is that a joke? The media are all over Washington, D.C. If your boss wanted to call in the media to say something, the media would go. They want to hear from him. Matter of fact, they want to question him. That is, the good reporters, not the rest of them. Go ahead.
To talk about the upcoming presidential debate in Atlanta and the things that Donald Trump is going to have.
Is that why you had Robert the Weirdo there? To talk about the debate that's coming up? That's why you had Robert the Weirdo? Seriously? How stupid do you think everybody is? Apparently they think you're all very stupid. Go ahead.
First and foremost, he's going to answer for the continued threat that he poses to our democracy. His continued...
All right, thanks for nothing. Now we have this guy, Chris Coons of Connecticut, who is a pathetic fraud, fake, and phony. He does what the Biden regime tells him to do. And I thought the people of Connecticut, even the Democrats, were smarter than this, but I'm told they're not. By Republicans there, that they're just this way. And so Chris Coons, Delaware. Chris Coons, well, the press is there. They're giving their talking points, and little bald, stupid-looking moron, Chris Coons, he steps right in line. Tell Levin, go.
For the last 3 weeks, literally 24/7, it's been the only thing that's been covered on this network.
So he's on the Constipated News Network. And, of course, that's not true. The Democrat character assassination of Sam Alito has been the other story they've been running with. Go ahead.
The chance to talk about Taiwan. I appreciate the chance to talk about other foreign policy concerns, the war in Gaza.
Thanks for nothing. Shut the hell up. There's that. I don't know how much more of this we can take, Mr. Producer. On The View today, I spotted this one. Was John Grisham. You know, he writes these novels. He's a lawyer. He's also a radical left-wing putz. That's right, Johnny boy. Putz. I doubt you want to be buying any of his novels anymore. I don't know why you bought him in the first place. Here he is on The View. Cut 19. Listen carefully. Go.
Imitating life, really, I think, is what you're doing. But life right now in the courtroom is getting a little scary. I mean, let's take the Supreme Court.
By the way, that voice is a Yenta known as Joy Behar. Joy Behar failed in radio, so they, she's the Peter Principle. Or the Patricia Principle. That is, she moves up as she fails. Now she's just one of the big-mouth yentas on The View. Go ahead.
People have issues with them. There are some scandals plaguing the Supreme Court. Do you have any thoughts on that? And maybe write a book or ever make a movie out of that.
I wrote a great book called...
Go ahead.
Brief.
Yes. The Pelican Brief. Clapping seals.
In which 2 Supreme Court justices were assassinated.
I know.
Yes.
And I thought about doing it again. And
No.
Writing part 2. He's talking about writing part 2.
It's all fiction.
It's all fiction.
It's all fiction.
Everybody knows
all
what's
fiction.
going on there. Yeah. It's all fiction. Because he said what he said, didn't he, Mr. Producer? What did he imply by that? That's John Grisham. Another stupid old man. Boy. So there he implied what we all heard him imply, despite the Yentas trying to come to his defense. And this is how these people think. They so hate us. They have nothing but contempt for us. The American people. Some of you have bought his books. Well, I recommend you stop. Some of you have gone to Robert the Weirdo's films. I recommend you stop watching them. Vote with your pocketbook. They want to destroy Sam Alito. They want to neutralize his effectiveness. He's the author of the Dobbs majority decision. He's got to be destroyed now. Clarence, then Sam. Neil will have his shot. And this is a message to Barrett, Amy, and Johnny. Message to you two also. Stay on the good side so you get the nice, wet kisses from the New York Slimes. The Stalin supporting, Holocaust denying, Castro installing New York Times. I'm going to say it forever. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
All right, Mr. Producer. I don't have it up yet, so to whom shall I speak? XM Satellite Jay in Utah. Jay, how are you, sir?
Not too bad. How are you, Mark?
All right, my friend.
Well, first and foremost, if President Trump and you came over for a backyard barbecue, I would ruin those steaks for you only because you're great Americans.
Thank you. Would you give us Heinz ketchup, too?
During your first hour, you discussed what people can do. And I don't know, how about people sign petitions within their states right now to file frivolous, malicious lawsuits against Bragg in the state of New York right now?
In other words, ethics complaints. Yeah, you can do that. Citizens can file ethics complaints.
They're doing it. Anything is game at this point, in my opinion, right now.
And what you're talking about is you see what happened to Jenna Ellis. You see what's happened to John Eastman. You see they're going after Dershowitz. They're going after all the lawyers who were involved in supporting and defending the Trump campaign. And what you're saying is what's good for the goose is good for the radical leftist Marxist.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. That's a great idea.
People have a voice in all of this.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're right. I agree 100%. How are we going to do in Utah? We ought to win that with a good conservative that I endorsed, right? The Romney seat?
Yep.
Yeah?
Why don't state attorney generals?
That's a damn good question. Why don't they step up and do more? I agree with you. All right, my brother, I got to run. Thank you. We salute our armed forces, police officers, firefighters, emergency personnel, our truckers, our brothers and sisters in Ukraine, our brothers and sisters in Israel. We have your back, even though Biden doesn't. And, of course, you, red-blooded great Americans. We've posted my interview with Donald Trump on all our platforms. You can hear it again or play it for the first time. See you tomorrow.